Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Is insecurity a failure of competence or a tool for governance? Despite rising killings, kidnappings, and regional flashpoints, Nigerians are still asking the same questions. Why does insecurity persist after trillions in security budgeting and spending? Does the problem arise from a lack of capacity, poor intelligence, weak coordination, and slow reform? Or is insecurity being misdiagnosed, politicized, or even quietly tolerated to justify ever-growing security budgets, expanded executive powers, and tighter control over civic space? At what point does national security stop being protection for citizens and start becoming a political shield against accountability? For answers to those questions and more, we're now being joined by Oluwatodimu Ige, who is a lawyer and a public policy analyst. Good morning, Oluwatodimu. Good to have you join us on the morning show today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. I mean, you're a lawyer and a public policy analyst, but then we're talking security on the one hand and insecurity on the other hand. What is your overview of where we are as a nation in terms of our challenges with insecurity? The eye of the world is on Nigeria. The government says that it's doing all its best to ensure that Nigerians are safe and secure, but then people keep complaining, either about what has happened in the past or what they perceive to be insufficiency of intervention. What is your own overview of what is happening, and where do you think that the government needs to do a whole lot more?
People often say that the voice of the people is the voice of God.
Vox Populi?
Yes, and you will see that we have found ourselves in a very terrible situation as a result of what has been happening. Everywhere, there's either one bad news or the other. Pockets of violence everywhere, insecurity. Ordinary times like this, people, when children are on vacation, you see people saying they want to take a road trip to our hometown, want to go to the village. But now you have to pray and fast. These are things that are guaranteed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that lives and properties are sacrosanct. Now, it's so sad that everywhere there is violence. So the government says they are doing their best. But for me, the best is not good enough. As a matter of fact, everybody is afraid. You are not sure of what would happen. Everywhere, no state. I don't think there's any state in Nigeria that is spared from this violence. So having said that, it means that the government needs to sit up. And it's not just about talk. Talk is cheap. We need to see action. And people, when there is, when people see the results, everybody is certain that, yes, the government is working. You don't have to come on TV and tell us this is what you have spent, this is what has been done. People must see that action is being taken. How many times have we seen kidnappers or bandits being arrested and paraded for the crimes that they have committed? So those are areas that the government should look at. Yeah, and tried, exactly. Tried and be punished for this offense. Not that, there's a media show and at the end of it, you grant amnesty. That's not the right way to go about it.
All right. So, many have suggested that this insecurity may be, quietly sponsored or quietly tolerated by the government. Now, what is your view on this controversial standpoint?
Well, world over, there are times that certain elements would want to perpetrate evil, would want to, as a means of business, as a means of religion, to wreak insecurity on the state. It is the onus is on the government, regardless of the party that is in power, to ensure that lives of Nigerians is secured. Now, having said that, of course, it cannot be over. It's not out of place to say that certain persons are doing this to frustrate the government. But it is the onus. That's why the government was elected, to come into power and ensure that Nigeria is safe. So that means that whoever is perpetrating or whatever cartel or cabal is seen to be behind this, the government needs to clamp down on them. What matters to Nigerians, what we have elected them for, is to ensure that the lives of Nigerians are secure. And that means that what they should do is to ensure that they clamp down on these elements. If they want to do politics, they want to do business, it should not be with the lives of Nigerians.
But don't you think that many Nigerians might caution against exaggeration? Exaggeration not about the impact of the insecurity that is happening, but then when you say something like there's no state that is spared, people might say, oh, of all the 36 states, maybe, yes, the impact might be everywhere, but maybe possibly far less than half of the states, particularly in certain zones, northeast, northwest, and north central, are the hardest hit. And therefore, they may say, don't demarcate the entire country, because you are in Lagos, for example. It is unlikely that, yes, you might have some worries about what might happen, but then it's not as if you wake up in the morning and you are hearing that Lagos has been hit, or that Oyo State has been hit, or that Ogun State, things like that. So what do you advise in analysis like this, that people don't overstate the problem, even though you need to state the issues so that they can be tackled?
Yes, there is a likelihood that some of these issues are exaggerated, and there's a likelihood that is underreported. The security apparatus, the people responsible for security in Nigeria, have not come out to say that this is the data we are working with. This is the statistics. When we have statistics, it's easier to say, oh yes, we have the pocket of violence in the northeast, in the northwest, in the southwest, or wherever. But there is no data. There's no data that we are working with. Or I'm not aware of any that has been publicized. That is the duty of the government, to let people know this is what we are experiencing. This is how we have dealt with it. I haven't said that. So it's not exaggeration. We're not just talking about banditry. We're not talking about kidnapping. There have been instances of armed robbery, because everything that has to do with security is not just about banditry. It's not just about kidnapping. We are talking about security of lives and property. So that means that, yes, it might not be all the states, but majorly, you will see that everywhere there is pocket of violence in the southwest, in the east. So it's fair to say that in all the regions, there's a lot of chaos.
Which violence have you noticed in the southwest lately?
Ilorin is in the southwest.
No, it's not central.
Okay. Oyo State is in the southwest.
Which violence is in Oyo State?
There has been spate of kidnapping in Oyo State. Recently I heard of a farm that was invaded and people were taken away.
I get your point.
Less than 2 weeks.
I get your point. Okay. There was one particular thing you spoke about that was of interest to me. The inability of Nigerians to commute, particularly on the road, to commute from Lagos or from Abuja, and then go to villages in a time like this, at this season, back home. And of course, it has to do with insecurity, kidnappings, things that Nigerians, didn't experience in the past. We didn't used to talk about this, but all of a sudden, people will say, yes, go back home, particularly to the east. From Abuja, you want to go to Kogi, but then by road, it's almost impossible. And then part of the consequences, corollary consequences that we're not dealing with is the fact that prices of tickets, ticket prices, have now skyrocketed. We're hearing about 600,000, 700,000, etc. to go to the east. Those are the issues that Nigerians, many of them who are impoverished already, are struggling with. So it's not just about insecurity. It's also, it now has to do with even the quality of life and what they will have to cough out to go back home to celebrate with their families. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's aside from the cost of living, which is growing astronomically every day. Like you have said, if you want to travel, you need to buy tickets. Aside from that, you need to provide for your security.
In buying tickets, you are paying 3 or 4 times in December what you will have paid.
You have paid,
in other months.
Very well.
And it is because you are unable to travel by road, which will have been an option anyway, and there are no rail services, connecting different regions of Nigeria.
And the options are limited.
Absolutely.
The options are limited in terms of transportation. Now, you talk about leaving your home down to another place. If you are going with your family, that means that the risk is extra.
Yeah.
You now need to talk about security for yourself. Now, they said that police should not guide VIPs or whoever. So that means that you need to make arrangement for security. And you might not be able to rely on local vigilante or intel. That also means that when you are out of your home, you need to now talk about what happens if any member of the family is kidnapped. You now have to run helter-skelter to raise money for ransom. It's a gory side, because I remember growing up, we would take road trips to Ekiti State, but now it's careful. I don't think it's scary, rather. I don't think anybody would want to take that risk. People would even ask you, what are you thinking about? Why are you?
I was in the Kogosi a few weeks though. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, and then I got several messages about why are you playing with your life? It's so sad that this is where we are. That people are now afraid that you are even venturing out of Lagos to go 4.5 hours, down to Ekiti,
yes.
Just to enjoy nature, just to, have a. How do you think we got here? What went wrong? We know about the story of Boko Haram, the alleged tendency to want to Islamize and things like that. But how did we get here that we couldn't nip it in the bud, and then 16 years down the line, we're still struggling with the same issue?
Well, for me, number one, corruption. Over the years, some people have been taking money meant for security and, have been spending it on their wives, concubine, and family.
What proof do you have?
Oh, quite a number. Quite a number.
For you to share.
Decided cases.
You're here. You're speaking as an analyst, not as an expert. So you are just like us. We're just analyzing the country's situation.
Yes.
Now, when you make allegations like that, it's important to prove it and say it. Like, for instance, we saw this and we saw that. So let's just talk more on the fact that we have insecurity plaguing the nation. And, I'd like for us to even just touch on the recent nomination or the recent recall, I would say, because he was General Christopher Musa as the
Minister of Defense.
Minister of Defense at this point. What's your take on that?
Well, for the Minister of Defense that has been called back, a school of thought said that while he was the COAS, he performed on his task, and that's why he has been brought back as Minister of Defense. Now that he's back, we expect him to hit the ground running and ensure that this pocket of violence, that this banditry and insecurity is dealt with decisively. Issues of security should not be lingered on. It should not take time. It's decisive. We already have, people believe that there's intel as to where these elements are. And what we need to do is to cleanse the system, hit them hard. And, they have to, because Nigerians have been on the defensive. Yeah. Most times we are reactive. We get intel and not act until they take the girls away, until there's an attack.
Intel part that you mentioned, but then just to follow up on what Oji asked you about General Christopher Musa, what do you say to those who say that if he had to be removed as the CGS, why should he be the all-expected savior as a defense minister?
Well, a school of thought says that they brought him back as a Minister of Defense because he has experience in dealing with insurgency, banditry.
But he was ejected as CDS.
Yes, that's
his
what I'm
core
going.
area,
That's what
his
I'm
core
going.
competence.
Yeah, now the Minister of Defense plays an administrative role. Yeah. Now, when as a Minister of Defense, your administrative role, considering that he has experience, and there have been instances that it was stated to have been on ground to even tackle insurgency at those times. And now, as an administrator, it's easier for him to bring forth his wealth of experience to the people who are on ground to say, oh, this is what I experienced in my time. But having said that, it doesn't mean that we don't have better people that can take that position. Because the government, another excuse was that, because of the urgency of the issue, scouting for people who would handle this position effectively, they brought him in to handle it as a matter of urgency. And so those are issues that we all know that ordinarily, if somebody is going to come in to deal with issues like this, we have experts who can come in. But politics, like I said, politics would always come in. Yeah. Corruption will come in. Yeah. Those are, ethnicity. So many factors that Nigeria needs to look at holistically to enable us move forward as a people.
Well, all right. On that note, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.